Alright, hi guys. So in today's video, it's not going to be about dolls. It's going to be another art video, which is what I know the majority of my followers actually care about on this channel is art and not my stupid memes or my stupid random doll reviews that make me look like I'm 5 years old, even though I'm not. Um, but in today's video, I'm going to show you my AP art portfolio. Yay! I took AP art last school year, so not the upcoming one. Obviously, I wouldn't have had my score, and you don't do the portfolio thing to get your score, but I took it last school year, so my junior year, and I'm going to take it again senior year because I thought there's always room for improvement, so I might as well try it. In junior year, I got a 4. Yeah, there we go. A 4 on my AP art portfolio. I was in drawing and painting, like the drawing studio one, not 2D, but the drawing one. And I got a 4. I was actually really surprised as to why I got a 4. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't know how I got a 4. My mom and a few other people I was asking had some guesses. And the reason I asked my mom is because she went to art school briefly, so she does know something about art. And so my mom and a few other people were telling me that the reason I potentially could have gotten a 4 was like creativity or just that I put a lot of like effort into it. My teacher said that the one thing that might have, well, I didn't ask my teacher yet because I'm not back at school, but like when I was putting the portfolio together, he was saying one of the things that might have like been really good for me that I did that not a lot of the other students did is I had really good documentation of my work through like thumbnails, planning, and note taking. And I put some of that into my AP portfolio, and he said that was really helpful. And then my mom said that the reason they might have done it is because I do have decent skills, but even though my skills aren't like Mona Lisa level quality, she was saying that my creativity mixed with the amount of skill that I do have was enough to make the judges go, wow, this person like did something that we don't usually see other people doing. And then me personally, why I think I got the score that I did is because I don't know. I think I just got lucky because I can't actually tell you what I could have done better to get a higher score because I personally don't think I even deserve a 4. Like I deserve a 3. If you look at my art pieces, you might be inclined to agree or you might be inclined to disagree. But I personally really was expecting to get a 3. So the fact that I got a 4 is already above my goal. So I really don't have any answers as to why I didn't get a 5. And in my opinion, a 4 is extremely good for me. And to people who are making videos, or to people who are watching a bunch of videos of people who got 4s and calling it a fail, 4 is not a fail. 5 is the highest you can get unless you get a 6. And pretty much almost nobody gets a 6. 6 is the rarest thing to get. So 5 is basically just like the highest thing you can get because 6 would be an A+, and then 5 is an A, and an A is already in some grading scales the highest thing you can get anyway. So and getting a 4 is like a B to a B+, so I'm actually not mad about that. Like all things considered, I would consider like failing to be like 2 and below. I think a 3 is average, a 4 is like really really good. It's basically just a 5, but if you just did a little bit more. And then a 5 is a 5. It's what some consider the best. And then a 6 is like impressive, like you are a god level art tier at that point. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about my sustained investigation and or my concentration, because the word was recently changed to sustained investigation, but I know a lot of people still know it as a concentration. My concentration slash sustained investigation was character design, and basically when I was doing the write-up, I think the write-up also saved me a little bit because I know a lot of people who did the AP portfolio talked about how they struggled with the write-up, and I didn't struggle with the write-up at all. I just kind of BS'd it. It was a bit stressful, like, to do it because I did it at the last minute, but I still just BS'd it out my ass because I do a lot of writing in my spare time anyway, so I'm good at BSing things because I'm a verbose person. So, yeah. And so my state investigation was character design, and basically, to summarize, I basically just talked about how I wanted to use characters to represent the real world, and how even though if I'm creating a fictional character, whether it be human or monster, they still represent how I see the world and how everyone is unique, diverse individuals living on this planet. So like even if I had a character that was like a monster vampire creature, I could still say like, oh, this character has a personality that we as humans can identify with, and they're based on a lot of real life experiences I've seen with people. And I basically said I wanted to use illustration to show off. I wanted to use illustration to exemplify how we can get like a sense of character through pictures and how we can grow to understand people more through artwork, because like if you think about like graphic novels and such, that's like in it of itself, graphic novels and such are like visual storytelling. So I basically talked about that, about how like, oh, I just wanted to have like visual storytelling so we could really get a sense for character. And I started off by designing characters, and then I gradually progressed from that to like putting them in illustrations where you could get a sense for what they were doing and how they might act as a person based on the illustration or the photograph, like with posture, expression, color, and setting pretty much tell a lot about how a character may or may not act in like illustrations and such. It gives a lot of context. And then I also went on to say that I was inspired by a lot of animators, such as like Disney animators. I just BS this part. I just said like, oh, I'm very inspired by like, with character design, I'm very inspired by Disney animators. I'm very inspired by like graphic novel writers, because they do a lot of like visual storytelling and illustrative stuff. And I mentioned a few artists. And then I also said that one of the things that inspired me a lot with character was music, because I can get a feel or a vibe for the type of character I want to write based on the type of songs I'm listening to. Like if I'm listening to a really happy romantic pop song, I might want to write a really sweetsy cutesy character, versus like a really depressing emo song, I want to write a depressed emo character. So I talked about that too. And then I went on a little tangent and talked about, like I see like my favorite thing about people in the world is how each and every person is different and unique and individual, and they have their own story to tell, like a snowflake or whatever. And so I went on to talk about that, and I was like, I wanted to portray how I see every single human in the world as different within my characters, human or not. And yeah, so that's pretty much what I said for my sustained investigation / concentration. Now I'm going to show you the pieces. I can't promise they're in the order that I submitted them to the APR website, because you can't really look back at your like submissions once you submit them. So I don't know the exact order I put them in, but these are all the exact pieces. There's like 1 or 2 pieces that I might have put for my best works, because you submit 5 of your best works, that I might have put for my best works that aren't here, that I'm going to add to the end. And then there's 1 piece that I put in my sustained investigation that was like an edited piece. It was heavily edited, and so I'm going to add the edited version of it to the end of the video as well, in like photograph form, because I obviously can't show it up since it was a digital edit. And then there's another piece that I actually digitally edited, but I originally drew out. So I'm going to show you the original version here, and then at the end I'm going to show you how I digitally edited it on the computer. And I'm going to try and mention what I said about these pieces. Yeah, the write-up, what I said about the write-up is just like a recap of what I wrote. I obviously wrote it much better than how I explained it, but yeah. So that was basically the idea, character design and showing off how each character in the real world is unique through my characters. So the first drawing that I have is this drawing of my 3 Ken dolls. And yeah, I basically just took 3 of my Ken dolls that I had and I lined them up in a row, and I decided to draw them, and then I colored them all like rainbowy like this. You can kind of tell they're Ken dolls. So I did use like a real reference. I didn't take a picture of my Ken dolls. I like actually referenced them while drawing them, because I had them on the floor. That's one of the good things about like being into doll collecting, I will say, is that it's helped me have a lot of like really good mannequin references for my artwork, because I always reference to my dolls when I'm drawing stuff, because they're just the most interesting thing in my entire room. So yeah, and these are Kens. And basically I just said that I used, for materials, I said I used like alcohol markers. Well, I might have just said markers, but alcohol markers / markers. I said I used, one of the things that I did a lot that I think helped is when I was talking about materials, I didn't just list the materials, I said what they were used for. So I said like alcohol markers for vibrancy or graphic art look, because it's kind of graphic-y. And then I said white jelly pen for like bright highlights, and then like colored fine liner for soft effect, like stuff like that in the materials area. Our art teacher really encouraged us to do that, where we said like this material was used because in the material section, rather than just listing it off. And yeah, in the theme for this one, I basically just wanted to show just the Kens, and I used this as my first piece. I can tell you 100% this was the first piece in my portfolio, so the first thing they saw was this, and I basically just said this inspired me to want to make more character design stuff, because I started off by drawing my Kens, and then I realized that like dolls and such were character design, and then I was like, oh, now I want to draw more character design stuff, so this inspired the rest of it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I said. Was I said this piece right here, which started off slightly more realistic because it was about dolls, then inspired me to want to explore the idea of character design. So yeah. The write-up, in my opinion, for like each individual artwork is not nearly as important as the write-up for the overall thing. Like the big paragraph write-up that you do at the end is more important, in my opinion, than the write-up for each individual artwork. So yeah. Then the next piece, I don't know if this was actually the next piece I put in the portfolio, but if I had to guess, it would make sense that this would be the second piece I did, like in that order. I just know that the Canon was the first one, this second piece. If I had to guess why I didn't get a 4 and why I got a 4 instead of a 5 is because I included this. This looks very 2D in my opinion, and I think if I was in 2D I would have got a 5. But this looks heavily like 2D. It technically is a drawing piece, like it does. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say it doesn't fit for drawing, but I think if I had just done a traditional drawing instead, it would have been more of I would have been more likely to get a 5. But technically it is still a drawing because if you can see it is a collage. But it's a collage of all my artworks. And what I said here basically for the caption was I wanted to create an overwhelming artwork piece that overwhelmed the viewer so that they had to look at every single, so that they like saw a large scale of like all these different characters and creatures and things so that they could fully understand how I see that every single person is different, and how like if you were in like a crowded room or something and you looked out at the audience basically, you would like see 50 million different people. So yeah, I basically just said I wanted to like overwhelm the viewer with a bunch of like characters. I either said that or I said that I was just using this for experimentation, because it could be both in my opinion. Both explanations I could have fit for this. And if I was going the experimentation route with what I wrote, then I probably just said something like I experimented by designing a bunch of different characters and collaging them together to decide what I really wanted to like fully focus on. And this is more like a broader scale of the topic I chose, and then I focused in later. They really like it when, for the AP art, they really like it when you start off with like a really broad topic and then you slowly narrow it and you show progression. If you can't show progression throughout your art of like the topic going from like character design to like character design that relates to the world around us to like a few specific characters that you're focusing on, you know what I'm saying? Like growth in that sort of way. If you can't show growth with your idea and it all just kind of looks like you had the same idea throughout the entire thing, they're not going to like it as much. They really like when your idea develops. So then the next thing I did was this. This was supposed to be not a portrait. This was supposed to be a like OC bio or original character bio, where I basically just explained I wanted to design a character that I could later show off. And this is like my like visual design aspects for the character, and this is how I visually designed him. If you can see in this piece how shitty my art looks, this is why I got a 4 and not a 5, but this is why right here I think I deserved a 3 and not a 4. Look at how absolutely shitty the drawing looks, and considering the fact I was in drawing and painting, I feel like they should have been more critical of me, but maybe I'm more critical of myself than they are. I think the one thing that did save this piece is the background. I did talk a little bit about the background being to add visual texture in the materials and or in the, in the materials and or in the write-up section for the individual pieces. Yeah, and I basically just said I created character design, and this was more like my planning process, because I did draw these characters again later in my portfolio. This is obviously my character Mike. Yeah, and the background I think adds a lot to it. One critique my art teacher did give me with this piece is that I should have had the characters be closer together so they looked more unified, rather than like looking like I copy and pasted a bunch of different characters onto a page. And I ended up doing that better in the next piece. So I'm positive, I don't know where I put this in my portfolio, but I'm positive that wherever I put this in the portfolio, I had this piece follow right after. Because to a degree, order does matter. If like two pieces are like sequential to each other. Well, sequential is actually the right word. But if two pieces are sequential to each other, or if like it kind of like really matters to get the full effect, you have to see like one piece after the other. So I did this piece next, and a lot of people really liked this piece. I think it's much better than the other one, and I think that's another reason I might have gotten a 4 and not a 3, is because there is some improvement. If you see, like, if you look at these two pieces, they look similar enough, but you can clearly tell one of them I improved on, which was this one. and the improvements made where I obviously added more figures to the piece. If you can see, there are more figures added to the piece. 1, 2, I made it more colorful in the background, and 3, I had way more like creative and original poses. But this is what my art teacher was saying. He was saying that like they should be more close together like this, so they almost overlap each other. And for this piece, I basically explained that I was creating another character, and even though it's not a human character, like I said in the like final write-up, even though this character isn't human, it still like portrays real life because of his personality or way that he like the story that he has behind him, because I was basically BSing it and saying every character has a story, which is true, and I do believe that. But yeah. And yeah. And also, I will say I did use Pinterest references for the poses here. I don't really consider that cheating because I kind of just like mashed a bunch of references together. And I've been told multiple times that if you use online references, the best way to do it is to mash a bunch of references together. So that's what I did. And next we have this piece, which I'm pretty positive I put in as another experimentation piece, much like the other two. And with this one, I basically just said I was experimenting with various different outfits, and I wanted to show off. Basically, I just wanted to experiment with outfits and just, like, have a character be in multiple different outfits to show off, like, hey, even, like, what a person wears is, like, telling something about their personality, or just to say I was trying to get a vibe for this character's personality based on their outfits. The background is, like, marker. It's like a watercolor marker in the background, and then in the foreground I just colored it black and white with Crayola crayons and, well, marker for the really dark black in the hair. Like, the deepest black is marker, and then the rest is Crayola crayons. And I basically just did that for contrast because it looks cool with the contrast, but also so that the figure would pop on the background. And also just to show scaling, because I have a lot of really, really colorful pieces in my portfolio, and I wanted just one piece that kind of felt less colorful and more like black and white to show like to show shadows, and like that I can do like black and white pieces too, and I understand the range of like colors in a black and white sense. And yeah. I don't know much else to say. Then we have this piece. This is obviously a printed out version of it. The original is on my wall, if you're wondering why it looks a little printed out. But we have this piece that I put into my portfolio. I couldn't tell you where I put this piece. But yeah. I know that once I put this piece down in my portfolio, I started showing more like finished illustrations, because this marked the point in my portfolio where I went from like experimenting with character to doing finished illustrations. And this clearly looks like an intended finished illustration. I did heavily edit this on Photoshop one of the days in class, and I decided to do the edited version because it had more contrast to it, and the one thing the original lacks is contrast. So I edited it, so at the end, if you stick around, you can see the edited version of this that I ended up officially submitting. But yeah, I submitted this. A lot of people, like my art teacher and a few other people that I asked, a few other art teachers that I asked, said they really didn't like this piece and that it was kind of basic, but I really, really liked it and thought it was one of my best pieces. The only thing that pisses me off is his mouth. His mouth looks like really low on his face, and that kind of looks off proportionally. Everything else about it I really like, and I basically just said in the write-up I want to experiment drawing, because he's supposed to be like an Asian character, he's supposed to be Japanese, and I said in the write-up I want to experience drawing a character of a different ethnic group. I wanted to practice drawing a character of a different ethnic group, so in this case Japanese, to show that like not all people in the world are like not all people in the world are just like white Caucasians. So yeah, so that fit with the whole like everyone is diverse, and I want to show off diversity through character design type thing. And yeah, in the background is just a bunch of graffiti, because I imagine like this character is like Japanese American or American Japanese, whatever, Asian American. There we go. I imagine this character is Asian American, and so they like live in like Chinatown or like some city area that has like a decent population of like Asian people, and then there's like Asian culture with it, and I associated that with like a city that would have that. I associated with like grunge and graffiti and stuff. So yeah. Then next we have this piece, which I don't think I would have put right after I don't think I would have put these two pieces right next to each other because they're both portraits. And the one thing my teacher did say is that I probably shouldn't put two portraits next to each other because it's going to be very apparent, and because it would be very apparent that I didn't draw a full body, and that would make me look a little lazy. So I should at least spread out images that look very similar but don't really connect to each other, just so I don't look like I'm doing all the same thing and being lazy. My teacher got really on me for not drawing full bodies, but the biggest reason I didn't do that is because I was trying to go for like this more realistic style rather than a cartoony style. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really know how to draw full bodies in a realistic style. I've never attempted that. I can draw full bodies in a cartoony style, but I've never attempted it in like a cartoony realistic style like this. But anyways, the next piece that I did is another one of my OCs as well, and she has like a more tan skin because she's supposed to be like Mexican. Not that all Mexicans have to have tan skin because their skin tone could almost look similar to my skin tone, but I tried to make it look a little bit darker. Like the type of skin tone that's not quite black but not quite white either. It's like a tan skin. I tried to give her that for more diversity. And then I just basically talked about in the write-up how I believed that music can play a big role in who we are as people and can really help give a sense of personality to people based on what type of music they like to listen to. And that's true. Like if you listen to your friend's playlist, you might like get a sense of their personality and what they like and who they are based on the music that they listen to. Because I know my playlist says a lot about me. So I said I basically put a character in the foreground, character in the front, and then I had a bunch of like songs in the background that I thought would be a part of her playlist, or album covers. And then I had a bunch of album covers in the background that I thought would be from musicians she liked and would be a part of her playlist, to say that this character is very inspired by music and that the type of music they listen to says something about the character, as well as we see that she has like a guitar behind her because this character also wants to be like a musician, so it's all music themed, and how music can play a large role in who we are as people, which is true not only for like our personalities but also for culture. Music can speak a lot about the culture many different types of people have. So yeah. And then the next piece I have is this one, which is another finished illustration that I would have put in my portfolio after I did all my experimentation pieces, and it's a portrait of all the main 4 characters that I've been redrawing. So like my biggest like overarching theme for this sustained investigation / concentration was these 4 characters. I use these quite a bit in a lot of my illustrations, and you can kind of tell too that I did that. And the other thing was my style. I drew in the same style mostly for the duration of the portfolio. I either drew in this style or I drew in this style, and like you can kind of all tell that they're like, in a way you can tell based on the style that they're all drawn by me. So there's that. And yeah, and they're just all at like a diner cafe talking and like interacting. And I basically just said for this piece that the way it fit into my sustained investigation is because it just shows like characters interacting, and that's really important in illustration, to show characters like interacting and being with each other, because that portrays like, you know, who like the characters are friends with and what they do with each other and how they like behave in social situations. The one thing I will say is it originally just started out as a drawing of these 2 characters, and I was just gonna leave it that way, but everyone told me that it looked really weird that it was like that this side of the illustration was blank. So I solved that problem by just drawing my OC Mike and Jessica, if you can tell, and then I just drew them in like the poses that I wanted them for the illustration, and then I cut it out and glued it on here. Like I kind of added them in last minute by gluing out the figures, and I think it looks really good. Like you can't tell, except for that I just told you right now. It's pretty hard to tell that I added these in later after like drawing them, coloring them, and cutting them out, and I think it works. Then the next piece, I have no idea where I would have put this in my portfolio, but I really like it. It kind of looks like comic book-esque, but it's not a comic book page. My idea for this was that it was supposed to be a bulletin board, if you can tell, and then there was like a bunch of Polaroid pictures hung up on the bulletin board to show like a bunch of various different aspects of one of my character Mike's family life, because I was kind of thinking like, you know, like mothers or whatever have like scrapbooks where they'll take pictures of their most like important moments in their family's life, and then they'll put them in a scrapbook to later look back on, or they might vlog it or whatever to later look back on for their family. I was like, what if my OC Mike had one of those like photo diary things that like his mother took, and they hung it up on a bulletin board. And for my explanation for this, I basically just explained it as, for this piece, I wanted to show off like a home. I wanted to show off a home and family life, and show off like a particular character through various different photos of how they like behaved throughout their life from when they were little to like when they got older, and various different like milestones that a child or a kid or a family goes throughout their life. So to make that make more sense, the first one here we have, and I did put little captions, but the words really don't speak as much as the pictures do. So for the first one, we have my OC Mike and Jessica, my OC Mike, who's the one with blue hair, and my OC Lavender, who's the one with purple hair, his mother. And the mother's like holding Mike, or Lavender's holding Mike to show like, oh, this is Mike when he was like a really little kid and being all cutesy. And that's like something you definitely have a picture of in like a scrapbook. Then the next one is like Mike, and he's supposed to be like a younger kid, and he's just doing like a funny face, and that's definitely something a mother would take like a picture of for haha funnies, and then just put it in the scrapbook because mothers like to take endearing cutesy pictures. Then over here we have a wedding photo. It's actually supposed to be Lavender and Crocus's wedding photo, and this shows off like the fact that like, hey, like originally Lavender starts off as like a single mother, and then she gets married, and then Mike gets like a father. You can kind of tell. And then down here we have Mike and like his girlfriend or whatever, Mike and his girlfriend Jessica, and that's like something that I feel like a picture would be taken of, like, oh, it's like my son's first date, I'll take a picture. And then we have like a picture of a cat because it's like, oh, family pets or whatever is kind of cute as well. Then we have here a picture of Lavender and her boyfriend Crocus, who I also drew earlier, and I said he was like the Japanese character. And they're just like cooking dinner, and I thought that was something cute. This also shows off really well character interactions again. And also, since it's multiple different like illustrations on one giant illustration, it kind of shows off like diversity and like the effort I put into like making it. So then we just have like Mike and Olsen, and they're just kind of being friends and joking around. Then we have Lavender holding like the pet Juno, which I thought was cute. And then finally we just have this picture of Crocus. And my like idea for this was he was getting out of the shower, and somebody jokingly took a picture of him getting out of the shower, and he got kind of mad because haha funny. And I think it just looks good overall, and it kind of definitely just shows a progression of time a little bit. Not too low, but a little bit. Then this is probably one of my art teacher's favorite pieces, because he said he really liked how it was completely full body and how it had like a environment to it. So yeah. So that's a really good tip. If you do want to draw stuff, please try and draw a lot of full bodies and environments, because those will give you a lot of brownie points. I will say I didn't draw every single one of these pieces like during the school year. Some of them I reused from like artwork that I did like a year ago or like over the summer or something. And this is actually a piece I think I did over the summer or towards the end of like the school year before last year. So my sophomore year, I might have did this towards the end of my sophomore year instead of my junior year. So yeah, but it's of my like OC Sony, original character Sony, and then my original character what's his name? My original character Thorn, and they're just in their bedroom. And basically for this one, I basically just talked about how bedrooms can give off a lot of personality, and how you can really get to know who somebody is as a person by the way they style their bedroom and the type of things they have in their bedroom, which is heavily true for me because my bedroom speaks loud numbers about who I am as a person. And I basically just talked about that. And I said that's why I chose to put them in the bedroom environment, because it says a lot about who these characters are as people. And then I also, like, in the big write-up said, even though these characters are non-human and they're not human, you can still relate to them. Because even though these two characters aren't human, how many people in the comments below can relate to the fact, like, oh, this character has, like, a My Chemical Romance poster on it, or this character has his bedroom styled like this. Like, I'm sure a lot of humans would like this still. And my entire point there was, having non-human characters can just allow... Having non-human character designs can just allow people to relate to the character more. And they're relating to them more because they're not seeing themselves in the character look-wise, but instead they're seeing themselves in the character through their personality. And then the final pieces, aside from one or two that I'm going to edit in at the end, is this comic. So the comic actually starts off this way. And my art teacher said that this comic was probably one of my strongest pieces. So I put this comic into my 5 selected works. So this comic was part of my 5 selected works. Then another of my 5 selected works I think I put was, I think I might have put this in my 5 selected works, don't quote me on that. And then maybe this piece, because a lot of people really liked this one, maybe. And then like 1 or 2 other pieces. But yes, this is a comic. I'm not going to have you pause and read that, but you can see. The one critique I did get is that I made the background rainbow colored, and I shouldn't have done that. I just kind of did that last minute because I got bored or lazy. Not bored or lazy, I just did it last minute because I wanted to, and then I regretted it, and then I had to go through with it anyway. But yeah, other than that, because someone was saying like it was almost too much to look at, and it would have been better if I didn't do the rainbow background, because then you could more focus on the comic panels. But yeah, this comic took me like a month to do, like a flat out month, because literally I would finish like a comic panel a night, and there's like 10 to 20 comic panels. And then I did this piece, and what I ended up doing for these 2 pieces is I ended up combining them together as like one illustration. And then the final thing I did was I did this. This is like final panel for the comic, but I ended up combining this page right here, this part of the comic right here, with hold on, let me show you. I'm gonna go up and get it. So it's in my sketchbook. Sorry for me getting up, but it's in my sketchbook right here. Here's where I put it. I'm gonna link to this sketchbook toward down below, because this is the sketchbook that I used throughout my AP art journey. So if you want to see a lot of my like thumbnails and like thinking process throughout the AP journey, it would probably be best to look in here. I just need to find the page. Here we go. No, it wasn't this page, it was like right before this. It was right before this bullshit. Here we go. So, this page right here. This is a really good documentation page according to my teacher. You can pause if you want. It's like a 2-page spread, because I just put a lot of notes in it. You can pause if you want to look at it in greater detail, but I would recommend you do a documentation page similar to this, because I 100% think this is the only thing that gave me more points, because doing documentation pages show that I really thought and I was being really meticulous with how I did everything. And even though a lot of my artwork kind of just looks like I threw shit onto the page, this really shows that I actually thought about it, even though my artwork might not look as though I thought this much about it. And I paired this page, like, I edited the 2 together as like a thing, because you can do that. You can like have 2 artworks be together on the same slide or the same image if you want, as long as you have a purpose for both artworks being right next to each other instead of their own separate pieces. And I paired this page, so I had this part of the comic and I paired it with this to show like my revisions, and I basically just said something down, like something in the write-up area where I was like, this image shows off how I was like revising and revisiting this artwork and comic to make it even better than ever before, and how I did a lot of like my planning process throughout the comic to get to the final pieces. So yeah. And the reason I paired the planning with the comic is to show like I did all this planning, and then the final result was like a comic page similar to this. So yeah, like the before and after effects. The only other thing I'm going to show off before I edit in the last 2 artworks that I did, that I obviously just can't show because they're just on my computer, is this. I put this in my 5 selected works, and the reason I did that is because if you notice, my sustained investigation, or my sustained investigation / concentration was heavily focused on character design, which is very cartoony, and there weren't a lot of realistic pieces. The closest thing I got to realism in my sustained investigation was this type of stuff. But then if you look at something like this, it's very cartoony. So to combat all the cartooniness in my 5 selected works, I wanted to show more realistic pieces. So I included this piece to show like, hey, I can do realism. Basically to show, hey, look, I can do realism too, so don't worry, guys. And apparently there are 2 separate judges. So the person who judges the 5 selected works is different from the person who judges the AP concentration or sustained investigation or whatever. I didn't actually know that until very recently when my art teacher told me. So there's that. That's 2 separate judges. But I still wanted to just show off to like one of the separate judges. Like, I can do realism too. And yeah, the only complaint I got with this is I used black marker. And I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I did it anyway. I used black marker for the hat. And it looks shitty. Don't do that. If I didn't do that, this would have been a 10 out of 10. There is one more AP artwork that I can show you that is hanging on my wall. That I'm just not going to take down, so I'm going to show you that. Let's go! And then I'm going to obviously cut to me, like, showing you the slideshow. So, the last artwork is this one. Oh gosh. There we go. It's this artwork right here. I'm going to show you a better image of it. Hold on. Alright, so sorry, we are back. I just had to like do a second clip. But it's this artwork right here in my OC Frost. And I basically just talked about how for this piece I wanted to show off that some people, I wanted to show off the idea that some people in the world like can act really childish, but they're still seen as adults, and how there are a lot of teenagers who might like be akin to act like childish, or be like, or to like things from their childhood, because basically I wanted to show off like, even though this is a teenager, he's very childish. He's in like a childish hoodie and wearing a cape and like a little crown, but the character is still a teenager and he's still older. And so basically the entire concept of this was not childhood, but things intended for like little kids shouldn't only be limited to little kids who get enjoyment out of it, which is something that I strongly believe in, because as a doll collector and as a person who likes cutesy little things, I like a lot of things intended for children, but I'm a teenager and I just want to show off that. And basically I just said I know a lot of people who like childish things but are adults and still really enjoy it, or teenagers or whatever, and I wanted to show that off. And then I also talked about how to add like dimension and to add like motion and to enhance the viewing experience. I like cut out parts of the illustration and put it over the put it over the border right here, just to like add like movement or something to the piece. And it kind of just makes it more exciting than if it wasn't like cut out. And the other thing I talked about is how the background is intentionally scribbly. That was not me just scribbling because I was lazy. I actually did that intentionally because I wanted to show off like how when a little kid is coloring, that little kid will like scribble in the background. So that's like the childish elements of the artwork, while the foreground's like more complete and finished, because the foreground represents more like I'm still a teenager, but just I like cutesy things, and that doesn't make me a baby or whatever. It's not supposed to be me, it's just an OC, but same concept. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to include the a clip show at the end of like the last few artworks that were in my AP portfolio, but I obviously can't show off like in person because they're just, again, on the computer. So yeah, and then that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoyed this AP art portfolio video. If you have any suggestions on why I didn't get a 5, then tell me down below, because honestly I don't even know how I got a 4, never mind a 5. Somebody tell me your thoughts on my portfolio down below. Constructive criticism only though. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and even though this isn't the end of the video, this is going to be the end of me talking, so constructive comments down below please on my portfolio, and stick around for the last like 2 pieces. Bye. Alright, these next few images are potentially the last 3 or 2 other artworks that I upload to AP Art. I'm really sorry I can't remember. It's been like 3 months. I apologize. But yeah, these were it. Basically just show off sketchbook pages and then an edited version of some of my other pieces. So, hope you enjoy.
Art is dead. Art is dead. Art is dead. Art is dead. Entertainers like to seem complicated, but we're not complicated.